Picture this: a movement that claims to defend faith, yet weaponizes it for political control. A vision of America, wrapped in religious language, but built on power, not prayer. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on Christian nationalism, a force reshaping politics, society, and the very meaning of religious freedom. I'm your host at Solway, and if you've ever wondered where the line between faith and power truly lies, you're in the right place. Hit that subscribe button because what we're about to uncover will challenge everything you thought you knew about the intersection of religion and politics in the modern world. Let's begin with a question that might surprise you. What if I told you that Christian nationalism isn't actually about Christianity at all? Stay with me here. To understand this movement, we need to go back, not just decades, but centuries, to the very founding of America. The Puritans arrived on American shores in the 1630s with a vision, a city upon a hill, a holy commonwealth that would be a beacon to the world. But here's the twist most people miss. Even then, this wasn't a theocracy. The Puritan leader John Winthrop understood that spiritual authority and governmental power were distinct. Fast forward to 1776, and the Founding Fathers deliberately crafted a nation without an official religion. Thomas Jefferson, in his famous letter to the Danbury Baptists, spoke of a wall of separation between church and state. James Madison warned that uniting religious authority with civil power would corrupt both. These weren't secularists trying to destroy faith. Many were devout Christians themselves. They understood something profound, that true faith flourishes in freedom, not through force. So when did things change? The seeds of modern Christian nationalism were planted in the mid-20th century during the Cold War. America defined itself against godless communism, and religion became entangled with patriotism in unprecedented ways. In God We Trust was added to currency in 1956. Under God was inserted into the Pledge of Allegiance in 1954. These weren't ancient traditions. They were Cold War political moves. But the real transformation came in the 1970s and 80s with the rise of the religious right. Leaders like Jerry Falwell and Pat Robertson mobilized conservative Christians into a powerful political bloc, arguing that America was a Christian nation that had lost its way. Here's where it gets interesting and complicated. What exactly do Christian nationalists believe? At its core, the movement asserts that America was founded as a Christian nation, that American law should be based on Christian values, and that the government should favor Christian beliefs. Some go further, claiming that true Americans must be Christians, or that the Constitution is based on the Bible. Now, let me be clear. This is not about everyday Christians who vote their conscience or bring their values into public life. That's religious freedom, and it's protected and precious. Christian nationalism is something else entirely. It's the fusion of Christian identity with American civic belonging, where patriotism and faith become indistinguishable, and where religious identity becomes a marker of who truly belongs in the nation. Here's a thought to sit with. In Islam, we have a clear understanding that ultimate sovereignty belongs to Allah alone. Tawheed, the absolute oneness of God, is the foundation of our faith. We don't equate national identity with religious identity because our ummah transcends borders. When I look at Christian nationalism through this lens, I see a troubling conflation, not of church and state only, but of earthly power with divine authority, which raises serious theological questions even within Christianity itself. Many Christian theologians and church leaders have spoken out against Christian nationalism precisely because they see it as a distortion of Jesus' teachings. Remember when Jesus said, "My kingdom is not of this world," or when he told his followers to render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's and unto God the things that are God's. These weren't throwaway lines. They were fundamental statements about the separation between spiritual and temporal authority. The theologian Russell Moore, himself an evangelical Christian, has called Christian nationalism heresy because it replaces the gospel with political power. Let that sink in. This criticism isn't coming from outsiders, but from within the faith itself. So, what does Christian nationalism look like in practice today? We see it in legislation that privileges Christianity in public schools, in efforts to declare America a Christian nation officially, in rhetoric that portrays political opponents as enemies of God, and in the claim that religious liberty means the freedom to impose Christian values on others. We see it when politicians hold up Bibles as props while pursuing policies that contradict the teachings within those pages. We see it in the January 6th insurrection, where crosses and Christian flags flew alongside Confederate banners, a troubling fusion of faith, nationalism, and political violence. Here's what concerns me most, and what should concern anyone who values genuine religious freedom. Christian nationalism doesn't actually protect Christianity. It cheapens it. When faith becomes a tool for political power, it loses its prophetic voice, its ability to speak truth to power, to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. Faith becomes a tribal marker rather than a transformative force. And here's the paradox. By trying to make America officially Christian, Christian nationalism actually threatens the very freedom that has allowed Christianity and all faiths to thrive in America. Think about it. The countries with official state religions often have the weakest religious practice. And when faith is enforced by law, it becomes hollow ritual rather than sincere devotion. As a Muslim, I appreciate living in a nation where I can practice my faith freely, where I'm not compelled to hide my beliefs or conform to state-sponsored religion. The First Amendment protects my right to worship just as it protects Christians, Jews, Hindus, Buddhists, atheists, and everyone else. Christian nationalism would erode that protection for all of us. If the government can favor one religion today, it can favor another tomorrow, or none at all. What do you think? Can a nation truly be both free and have an official religion? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I genuinely want to hear your perspective on this. Now, let's talk about what's at stake. Beyond the constitutional and theological concerns, Christian nationalism has real-world consequences. It fuels division, turning fellow citizens into enemies based on faith. It marginalizes minorities, not just religious minorities, but racial and ethnic minorities who are often excluded from the Christian nation vision. It distorts policy debates, framing political disagreements as cosmic battles between good and evil rather than practical questions about governance. And perhaps, most tragically, it drives people away from faith altogether. When young people see Christianity weaponized for political gain, when they see hate and exclusion justified in Jesus' name, many walk away from religion entirely. Survey after survey shows that the fastest growing religious category in America is none, those with no religious affiliation. Christian nationalism is accelerating this trend, not reversing it. Here's a historical perspective that might surprise you. Some of the strongest advocates for separation of church and state were religious believers, particularly Baptists and other minority Christian denominations who had been persecuted by state churches in Europe and colonial America. They understood that government power corrupts religion, not protects it. Roger Williams, founder of Rhode Island and a devout Christian, established the first colony with true religious freedom precisely because he believed that civil authority had no business enforcing religious belief. He called state involvement in religion forced hypocrisy, powerful words that resonate across centuries. The great irony is that America became the most religiously vibrant nation in the Western world precisely because it had no established church. Freedom nurtured faith in ways that state enforcement never could. So where does this leave us? As we navigate an increasingly polarized political landscape, we need to reclaim the distinction between faith and nationalism, between religious conviction and political power. We need to recognize that you can be deeply religious and fully patriotic without conflating the two. We need to understand that religious freedom means protecting the rights of all believers and non-believers alike, not the privilege to impose our beliefs on others. And we need to ask ourselves, what kind of nation do we want to be? One where citizenship depends on religious identity, or one where diverse people of all faiths and none can coexist, contribute, and thrive? Here's my final thought, and I want you to really sit with this. True faith doesn't need the power of the state to survive. In fact, throughout history, faith has often been strongest when it stood apart from political power, when it spoke prophetically rather than politically, when it transformed hearts rather than controlled governments. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, established a society in Medina where religious freedom was protected through the Constitution of Medina, which granted rights and protections to Jews and other non-Muslims. Even in a Muslim-majority society, the principle was clear. Faith cannot be compelled. As it says in the Holy Quran, there is no compulsion in religion. This isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's the recognition that genuine faith must be freely chosen, not politically enforced. Christian nationalism, despite its religious language, violates this fundamental principle. It seeks to create a nation where Christian identity and American identity are fused, where political power enforces religious conformity. But history shows us that this path leads not to a more faithful nation, but to a more divided one, not to religious revival, but to religious resentment. The beauty of America has always been its pluralism, its ability to hold space for diverse beliefs while protecting the rights of all. We don't need to agree on theology to agree on justice, on compassion, on the dignity of every human being. We don't need a Christian nation, or a Muslim nation, or a secular nation enforced from above. We need a free nation where faith can flourish in the hearts of individuals, where religious communities can thrive without dominating, where we can disagree about ultimate questions while still cooperating on common ones. So I'll leave you with this question. What does it mean to truly honor both your faith and your country? Is it by trying to make everyone conform to your beliefs? Or is it by protecting the freedom that allows all beliefs to coexist? Think about it. Pray about it. Let me know in the comments what you think. If this video challenged you, made you think, or gave you a new perspective, do me a favor. Subscribe to Solway, share this with someone who needs to hear it, and let's keep this conversation going. Because these questions matter. They matter for our nation, our communities, and our souls. Until next time, stay curious, stay compassionate, and remember, true faith needs no earthly throne. Peace be upon you all.